Hey, welcome to the Recovering Christian Entrepreneur Show. I am your host, Cam Snow.
And I am your co-host, Carla Snow. And once again, we have a special guest on the podcast. If you're watching the YouTube channel, you will have seen my son and his adorable, whatever this onesie is.
Like caterpillars or something.
No, it's the sweet peas.
Sweet peas.
Anyway.
Yeah. He's becoming a regular on the show.
Yes.
He doesn't really nap. So he's just kind of awake during the time we record this podcast.
Yep.
So on today's episode, we wanted to tackle something that is pretty important for entrepreneurs. And honestly, it's really important for people who want to get things done in the world, whether you are an entrepreneur or you're just launching a creative project or whatever it is. And that is the gap that exists between downloading information and actually taking action. And why is it so hard to just take action and get things done? And we're going to look at this specifically through the lens of why is it hard for entrepreneurs sometimes to take action, but also how is it maybe an added layer if you grew up in the church or are Christian? Where do those religious things come into play on a topic of like just doing things, which seems like it can be kind of a broad topic. But there are specific experiences that we both had that I think could be helpful for you as you're navigating how to take the right action in the right direction in your business and in your faith walk. Mr. Mann is making his presence known. So I guess Carla's navigating things with Shiloh at the moment, so I'll just share a little bit of my story around this. And I want to frame this within the idea of self-trust, which may be giving it away a little bit. But for me, what this looked like, this journey, I'm going to go back to when I started this business in 2019. Carla and I run My Story Economy, and it's a marketing, coaching, and consulting brand. And when I started that in 2019, I really, Mr. Shiley just burped. I really struggled to just get things done, just in general at all.
Yeah.
And that was that was a huge factor in the business. It was also a huge factor in our relationship. Our marriage at that time was very, very sticky as I was navigating through this very tumultuous time in my life. And it was very hard for me to take action. I found myself overthinking a lot and staying in my head and considering the possibilities. And it was really, really discouraging because I would have all these really cool ideas. But number one, I didn't actually think they were cool. That is more about the self-image stuff we've talked about in previous episodes and probably will in future episodes. Yes. But even when I did have an idea that I'm like, oh, this is like a really solid idea, it was very hard to move it to the finish line. In fact, one of the first offer ideas I had for my business, December 2019, I remember getting so excited about it. And it was a product to help people extract their stories, which is what I do now. I help people understand, extract their story, heal from it, and then move it into marketing that converts higher than anything else. And that idea, I was like, oh, this is so exciting. I love this. This is what I meant to do. And yet I didn't actually take action on that concept for like another, like almost a year.
Yeah.
Before I was actually able to move on it. So I want to like allow some space for you to input since Shiloh's gone down a little bit.
Yeah.
What is it that you saw within me during that season that was contributing to all of that inaction?
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that question. So remind me, but like for me, I actually approached this whole topic and experienced this whole topic in a completely different way. For like, with me growing up in a religious cult, if you will, and then coming out of that and basically deconstructing everything. Like I grew up not trusting the information I had. So for me, it wasn't that I had a ton of information, I just wasn't taking action, like specific action. It was more of I didn't trust the action because I did not trust the information.
Why didn't you trust the information?
Um, part of it was reinforced stories of like I in math, teachers would ask me to show my work, and they would look at it being like, I don't know how you got the right answer because your work is wrong. And it was always this like point of like, oh hey, you learned how to do some of the steps in your head and just skip. I know. I know.
Yeah.
I was told that it was like wrong, that it wasn't right. I struggled to do things in school the way that they were taught. And I struggled with doing it I struggled to do things the way that people saw them and taught them to me.
Yeah.
My brain just like thought differently.
And
it worked. And then when it didn't work, it was like this reinforcing belief that something was a little cuckoo in my brain. And just like reinforce this belief that the information I had was just broken.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you bring that up of like, I was taking action, but like people were telling me it was in the wrong way. And you add that onto the religious environment that you were in.
Yes.
Which is like
women be seen and not heard.
Women be seen and not heard. And a very right-wrong culture.
Yes, right? Very like, black and white, no middle ground, no middle ground. Gray.
You are either right or you are wrong, and you don't want to be wrong because then you're ostracized and everything. Shiloh's so cute right now. And like I think if you grew up in any kind of religious environment, then you've experienced that. You've experienced like this is the right way and this is the wrong way, and whatever you do, you don't want to find yourself doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
How do you think that culture impacted you when it comes to this gap of taking information and turning it into action?
I think of like literally the conversation that me and you had last night, where I was like, no, I need to know like the topic that I'm going to speak on when I do my marketing, because like I don't want to give myself space to think.
Yeah, and for the context, we were talking about Carla's growing her brand and actually launching a new brand. Details to come. Yeah, Mr. Man, that was a funny joke, huh? And talking about like her content plan and what are the topics and what do I talk about, and I don't want to just go out and create more noise. I want to speak and say something of substance and that's significant and that's going to add tremendous value to somebody's life. So that was the context of that discussion last night. So
yeah. And so and then like you asked like if I wanted feedback, and I was like no, because if you are to read back the posts and the content, I'm going to pick it apart, because there is, when I am just allowing myself to unlock and just release my gift, it flows so beautifully. And then the second thought that comes is the immediate like, oh, I forgot to talk about my offer. Oh, I forgot, start to nitpick all of the things because I'm judging it. Yeah. Because of a perceived lack of information. Well, no. A perceived lack, I'm not going to say this quite how I mean it, but like almost like not a lack of information, but false information. Like I am filled with false information.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So like rather than like a perceived lack, it's like, oh, I'm afraid of, it looks practically like I'm afraid of doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Or my posts are going to hurt. They're not going to land.
They're not going to help.
They're not going to actually help. That's kind of like some of the things that it presents itself as.
Yeah.
Or it's like I don't have any ideas.
Yeah. Do you ever think about or struggle with the idea of this post or what I'm saying may not like represent God faithfully? Like my relationship with Jesus, like this idea of like you're worried about I'm supposed to be a representative of Christ and like an ambassador. Does that ever cross your
No,
mind?
not at all, because I don't think I am. I don't think I'm an ambassador at all. I don't think I have any place to be an ambassador. I don't think at all. What I actually think
Mm,
is I fear judgment from religious people,
mm,
because I've been and I've had these beliefs that people are like, that's kind of in the gray area, Carla. Like, why are you
yeah.
making a black and white thing gray? And I'm like, because it doesn't
Mm.
make it.
Do I need to be worried about you?
Yes.
Yes.
Do I need to be worried about you?
Yeah, yeah. Mm,
Yes. And I've had it in my past, in my like in high school, I'm very outspoken, if you don't already figure that out with just my presence on social media. I am a very outspoken person. And growing up, that was a thing that I oh my gosh, my son.
he's going crazy.
Um
Yeah, he's teething right
he's
now.
teething hardcore right now. That was always a thing where like um being a bad influence. I literally had a group of friends in high school where I was pen pals, because that was a thing, kind of dating myself there. But like I was pen pals with a few friends, and all of a sudden they stopped coming. And then a couple years later, I got an email. One of those friends had gotten an email, gotten access to what my email was, sent me an email and was like, hey, sorry, I didn't realize you were still writing to me, because my parents took the letters and intercepted them.
Yeah.
So like as a teenager, I was literally like, parents viewed me as dangerous because I was constantly asking why.
Yeah.
I was constantly questioning everything that I believed
And was taught.
And everyone thought I was trying to like be divisive.
Yeah.
But in reality, I was just trying to like, I just wanted to like know how.
Yeah, you just wanted to know why.
Yeah, I just
Like
wanted to know
actually
why.
ask the question.
Yeah.
And that's I think a unique ability of yours is that like seeing truth, and you have a very high value for truth,
Yes.
which has been there since forever. And actually, that was one of the reasons that attracted me to Carla in the first place.
Yeah.
Is she did something that I call pulling a Martin Luther. I grew up in a Reformed church. And so like I grew up with the stories of the Reformation in the 1500s, like all my childhood. And so it was very much something of significance when she said that she went through the Bible and read the whole Bible cover to cover when you were like what, 8 years old, something like that.
8, 9, and 10.
8, 9, and 10. And then went to
leadership.
Like
I read it through each
3
year.
times. Yeah, 3 times. And then went to the leadership of that church and was like, hey, you guys are teaching this, but I found these verses that say this. What's up with that? And that wasn't like,
oh, I didn't go to the leadership. I like would ask my friends and stuff like that.
oh, okay. Well, you started asking questions and word got around.
Yes.
Yeah.
Word got around and I was no longer
and it was like
person.
You were not a safe person to be around. I think it's interesting that the conversation has kind of gone in this direction where we're talking about like questioning. And is it okay to question? And how does questioning and doubt, what relationship does that have to the actions that we take? Because we're talking about the information gap in implementation. It's the biggest problem in entrepreneurship, and especially in our industry. We're in the coaching and consulting industry, and a huge chunk of the industry sells courses. And you sell the course, and course completion rates are at like industry wide, like what, 2 to 4% or something like that, where people are not actually taking the information and then acting on it to get the result that they were promised in that course. And so it's a big problem in the industry. But it's interesting that as we're talking about this, where we have naturally ended up in the conversation is actually about the nature of doubt.
Yeah.
and how that doubt impacts you when you're ready to take a step, or maybe not ready to take a step, but you need to take a step.
Yeah, when you say the word doubt, what I see is I see a house with an earthquake. But like a house that's alive, like trying to find stable foundation in the midst of an earthquake.
Oh man, like Monster House, that movie from like
Mhm.
10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Ooh,
like
that hits.
doubt isn't like this thing that we need to be scared of, oh my gosh, am I not a Christian if I'm doubting, or oh my gosh, like it's everything I know, like
Yeah.
I'm having doubts about my business, like am I in
Am
the
I doing
wrong,
what I'm supposed to be
yeah, am I
doing?
supposed to be doing what
Yeah.
I'm, yeah, exactly, or am I in the right industry? Like
Yeah.
there, doubt is a thing that we all feel across the board, whether you grew up religious or not. That's
Totally.
irrelevant.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I experience doubt, there's always an element of self-trust.
Here we are.
Always. And there is also an element of you're just trying to find your footing again when there's been a very big cosmic shift.
Huge. Like your
Whether
whole
it's
world is
growth,
shifted.
yeah, your whole world. Like I experienced it in dramatic ways when Evelyn came into our life.
Yeah.
Now again with Shiloh, I'm experiencing a massive earthquake.
Yeah.
Where things are it feels like my life is crumbling down around me. And I feel like there are some deep dark lows where it's like, is this the end? But rather than like Pompeii, where it's like the volcano, it's going to destroy everything, what it is it's a earthquake that has been sent to expose and unearth and uncover the gold, but also remove and or expose and uncover what is uncertain, what isn't steady, what isn't a strong foundation. Because if you think of a literal earthquake in a
Yeah.
literal house, like not so much here in Tennessee, it's more of a California thing, but in Tennessee, think of tornadoes.
Yeah.
Like you think of things that are tied down as sturdy, they're not going to go anywhere. Well, same thing when we're experiencing doubt, using that as like, that's actually like doubt isn't something to be feared. It's not negative. It is opening up the opportunity for you to see where in yourself and in your life that you have a loose picture.
Yeah. It's almost
Like a
like
loose.
doubt is like a specific kind of energy,
Mhm.
like a disruptive force that comes in and just, grabs onto the post and shakes and be like, is this sturdy?
Yeah. But that's actually what that, oh, imagery. Fiddle leaf figs, or fiddle leaf plants, sorry, not figs, fiddle leaf plants, are notoriously difficult.
Fiddle leaf.
Fiddle leaf.
Fiddle leaf. Okay.
Sorry, my words.
My first thought.
I have
Yeah.
dental work done today, so like
No, I thought
I
you
don't
were referencing
feel.
like a children's
Oh
nursery tale called Fiddly Figs or something.
no,
And I was like, I'm
fiddle.
about to get schooled.
No. There's a
We
plant.
have a running joke about that.
Yes. Anyway,
Anyway.
you don't have to know what the plant is. Point of the thing is it can be difficult to upkeep.
Okay.
And one of the things that you do is you shake the plant. You shake the trunk.
Oh,
You shake it.
okay.
And you create stress. And what that stress does is it makes the roots go deeper and the trunk stronger.
That's awesome.
And so like when you said that, that is the imagery that immediately went in my brain of like doubt and all the things is shaking the tree. And when you dive deep into who you really are and you dive into like real, authentic truth, that is when you are able to be nourished from the good soil and you are able to strengthen, and your trunk or your own energy is expanded.
Man, there's so many images that come up for me around that. Like the very first breakthrough experience I went to in 2019 before I started the business.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to manage my own energy.
Yeah.
And I remember somebody gave me the image to use of being like a tree with roots going down the ground. And is kind of like a little meta moment around like the faith journey, because this was somebody who was like spiritual and not religious telling me how to manage my energy, which I thought was a religious thing. I thought that energy was a spiritual thing, and I thought that it was a spiritual thing that was not of God.
Mm.
And I was like, God, how do I receive this and use this? Because like I feel like I'm being tossed all around. There's so much energy in this room. I'm just being
Yeah.
flailed. And God gave me the verse. I think it's in Proverbs. I mean, it's actually multiple places of the man who trusts in the Lord is like a tree planted by the waters that extends its roots into the stream. And just that metaphor of like life in Jesus being like a tree that has just strong roots that is being constantly nourished by an ever flowing stream of life. It's just such a powerful image and a metaphor, and just an amazing example of God's grace, of just like those little things that he gives you to get you through those moments of doubt. Because that was a moment where I was experiencing doubt, and it's like, is this okay? Is this okay for me to listen to what this person is saying?
Totally. Yeah. And then going into kind of circling back to the question of like originally with like business and doubt in the business, doubt in actions around the business, or you might not even fully have gotten to that place. You might just like feel stuck. Like you're hitting a ceiling, you're hitting like what you thought was the floor. You feel like you keep hitting a ceiling, and it's presenting itself in marketing, your marketing breaking, or you don't have marketing.
Yeah.
Just kind of like throw some stuff up because you're supposed to.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
You're supposed to have an email launch sequence, whatever that means. Sales pipeline, CRMs, right? All of these like buzzwords, if you will, which I mean, don't get me wrong, like all those things are very helpful and everything, but like doubt within yourself can look in your business like inaction. Can look in your business as a decline.
Yeah.
Where you're like, wait, this isn't like the 2020 pandemic. What the heck is happening? My company's tanking.
Yeah.
When it should be recovering.
Yeah. Revenues dropping.
Clients aren't happy. I'm unhappy. My faith is breaking. I feel out of alignment. My marriage is breaking, or my relationship is unstable, or heck, I experienced oh my gosh, I don't even know myself. Like my word for this year is me.
Yeah.
And then the second word is discovery. Whatever that means. And I'm really excited to dive in continuously, but it's just like one of those things where we are incredibly smart, and we're in that day and age. We're in an information age, like for sure. We have information at our fingertips. We just got to have a very solid degree in Google.
Yeah. Or AI. As ChatGPT.
Yeah. All of those incredible tools. And so now that it's no longer an information thing, now we need to know how to access the right information.
Yeah.
At the right time.
There's too much information now.
Yeah.
There has been for a while. Like we've been out of the information economy for a solid decade or more.
Yeah. There's
And
definitely a information bubble for sure
yeah,
that's gonna pop.
and that's the
And
implementation economy.
yeah, implementation. So like understanding yourself, because so like you might be thinking like, okay, I'm not religious, or maybe you are, and you're like, how the heck does this apply to business? Well, personal problems are business problems. That's a whole other conversation. But and when you're experiencing this, when you have all of the information and there's a disconnect within yourself, when you're disconnected from yourself, there is a level, there's like almost like a kink in the hose where you struggle to access the right information at the right time in order to execute.
Yeah.
And then as I'm saying that, I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds like so big and hard and difficult. And what is the actual difficult part is inertia, which is like Newton's law.
Yeah.
Right? Like what an object in motion stays in motion, an object at rest stays at rest.
Yeah.
So it's like that, like first initial thing.
Getting it out of the resting state.
Yeah. So whether you're on YouTube or listening on the podcast, my hope, and I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure Cam will agree. Like, my hope is I don't want this podcast and this channel, the show, to just be regurgitating of truth. Although that is so important to be a voice of truth in a sea of lies, in a economy, coaching, Me Too movement. Like, it's so important.
Yeah.
I want it to go above and beyond where you feel, rather than condemnation, you feel love and a conviction and a clarity of purpose and mission.
Yeah.
In order to act.
Yeah. That translates directly into your actions.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that I want to add to what you just said. Like, I think it's so valuable, what you just did, to be able to help people identify, like, hey, where is like that self-doubt and that lack of self-trust? How do you know that that's a thing? Well, here's how it might show up in your business. And you kind of like briefly mentioned this, but I wanted to touch on it.
Yeah.
Because this is definitely what it looked like for me, is you're buying solutions all the time.
Yeah.
You're buying the program. I went from a porn addiction to a program addiction. And I was just buying programs and programs and programs and courses to try and like fix an issue that was actually a deep self-trust issue. I did not trust myself to take the actions that I needed to take because I didn't trust the vision that I had, because I didn't think I had. There's so many levels to the self-trust thing that impacts my ability to just take action. It sounds so simple. You know, it's the logo or the slogan for Nike, just do it, right? But that misses so much of how. How is that possible to just do it when it's like, well, what do I do? And what direction do I go? And is this pleasing to God? And if I do this, who am I going to be? It's actually, it can become a big and overwhelming question. And there's a tension. There's a tension between just do it, get the thing done. Done is better than perfect. And giving yourself the time and space to explore when those things are leading to a deeper conversation. Because those both are really important to have.
Yeah. And also don't forget the other part of it too, on the like religious institutional side, is like also like, aren't we supposed to be poor?
Oh man. That's
like, aren't we supposed to like exalt God, not ourselves? Like, how are we supposed to be Christians with personal brands?
Yeah.
I'm like hinting at some like future episodes.
Totally. And like,
because that we could, we've got a series coming.
Yeah. In fact, this zinger is coming through. Maybe it's the episode title of this episode of what's coming up. But it's like, if your view of God requires you to be small so that he can be great, then your view of God is too small. Then you have a tiny God. If he requires
little
that
G God.
you have a little G God. Like that there, and there's a difference between that and like just making yourself small. There's a difference between that and humility, and we'll dive into that in a future episode. But that's just to crack open the door,
just like
around,
kind of leave that open.
So leave that bad boy open. But the last thing I wanted to add is, when it comes to taking action, and this is certainly true of my story, is that there was a season where I just found it very difficult to take action. When I did take action, it felt very heavy and energetically expensive.
Mhm.
And we had a 6-figure year our first year in business. And so those two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah. You can be
And
wildly successful.
while taking action that feels hard.
Yeah.
And then in 2020, I started working on like my productivity systems. And so there's sometimes I call it the invisible problem of entrepreneurship. It's not specific to Christian entrepreneurs per se, because we've been talking about the mindset and belief side of things. But I call it the invisible problem of entrepreneurship, which is like there's very little information on how to take your ideas and put them into a regimented, simple system that then gets on your calendar and gets done. And I was experiencing so much overwhelm because I didn't have just a system for how I used my calendar, for how I managed my tasks, for how I managed my information and my resources. And I implemented those things, had a huge boost of momentum, and then fizzled out again because now I was up against my beliefs again. And it
Yeah.
wasn't this band-aid solution of just rewiring how I did certain things.
Yeah. And like for me with self-diagnosed with ADHD, though I realized it might not be self-diagnosed because I had a doctor ask me to get tested, but that's a different conversation. For me, I can't survive without having that kind of a system.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like analysis paralysis, where if I didn't have that system, then I didn't feel comfortable going out and taking action.
Right.
Because like for you, like implementation is within systems. Calming your brain, soothing your brain, kind of like a cold beverage after, like when you were a kid and you're swimming and you got out of the pool to eat lunch and you had that glass of lemonade. Oh,
Yeah.
best feeling ever.
Seriously.
That is something that you needed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then on my side, how it looks like, because you might not identify with what Cam just mentioned, because for me, I had a different experience where I did not feel comfortable moving without having all of that in place. And so for me, but I'm a very creative person.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was letting go.
Yeah.
And with my past, letting go meant giving up my power.
That's what you thought it meant.
That's what I thought it meant.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes. To clarify, I thought it meant giving up my power. But practically speaking, it also is like there's the mindset and the productivity piece as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also a sense of community. And this is like the other side of things, is it's not enough. It's not, you don't just have to go on this journey alone. Because you might be thinking, okay, I have the information, I can take action, I have the power within me, like great. And you can also move forward so much quicker when you are within a community. And so we do have a free one, which is in the description box, because I can never remember the freaking link, no matter how many times we record. I never remember.
It's the Recovering Christian Entrepreneur Money, Marketing, and Your Message on Facebook. And it's bit.ly/Recovering Entrepreneur Group.
Yes.
To get in there.
So that is a free community.
We're talking about the living room.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on that, speaking of free communities, by the time this podcast is published, this might be a thing. We haven't really set a date for it yet, so I'll just leave this in the unambiguous future. We're launching something called the living room within that group. You have to be in that group in order to get access to this. And you can only get into the group if you are an entrepreneur who comes from a religious background or are currently religious of some nature. Mainly the entrepreneur piece, to be honest. And the living room is a free mastermind kind of thing that we're going to be running, and we call it the living room after our own living room, where we have friends over and we talk about faith and Jesus and business. And it's just these kind of after dinner casual conversations where there is space to be witnessed and seen in processing through grief or trauma or faith deconstruction or whatever that looks like, and also just like brainstorm and get excited about like the things that God is doing within your offers and in your marketing and in your sales and
Yeah.
those cool things. And so kind of like think laid back theology lounge combined with business mastermind. And that's kind of the vibe we're going for. And it's a way for us to interact and serve our people.
And let me preface, this is not a Bible study.
Not a Bible study, nor is it solely a business mastermind.
Exactly.
This is not a strategy fest.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a time of getting together. What is actually on your plate right now? Let's build up each other up in taking action.
Yeah.
We have the information now. Let's take action.
Yeah.
Now, if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, Cam, Carla, I'm not an entrepreneur. I have no desire. Or you do have a desire, but you don't fall in the category that Cam just said.
Yeah.
Cam teased it at the beginning of this episode, but like I am stepping more out with my own personal brand because I have a heart for speaking to teenagers and speaking to parents of teenagers, but really to actually be able to express what is actually important to them, to be able to communicate in a way that shows them love and understanding.
Yep.
And also healing the wound, helping you heal the wounds from when you were a teenager.
Yeah.
And so
very volatile
time. Oh my gosh.
Most of my trauma.
Speaking of a massive earthquake, it's a freaking tsunami.
Yeah.
Like, teenagers, teen time. Oh man.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if that is you, then go over to my Instagram. I'm more of Instagram than Facebook.
Yep. That link is down below, but she's Carla Athena.
Yes.
On Instagram.
On Instagram. And if I get enough interest, I've actually thought about opening up a non-business related living room where it is a gathering within this realm of self-trust and love. What the heck does self-care even mean? Or I'm doing self-care, I'm checking the boxes, or just taking action in life, or really you're just freaking lonely.
Yeah.
It's like, and you find yourself in a desolate place, and when someone asks like, wait, why didn't you reach out to me? And you're like, because I don't even have the words to describe the feeling that I'm feeling right now. It's so exhausting to just communicate that.
Or the energy to type the words.
Yeah, the energy to type the words or have a phone call. I just like stuck in the couch. Yeah. Like if that is you, I am being 100% honest here. If I might do it anyway, but if I get enough interest, I will open up a free version for that side as well.
And there's a lot of really exciting things coming with.
Yes.
Just a lot of things that are happening, and a lot of things are happening with you. So like, I guess we're to wrap this episode, like we've got the Facebook group, the living room. Carla's launching this really crazy, exciting thing for teenagers and parents of teenagers. And that is evolving, but right now you can go to Carla's Instagram.com/Carla Athena, or just search it on your mobile. And she does a Get Ready with Carla daily live stream, where you can like get ready in the mornings with her. Get
ready in the mornings with me. You can either message on
7:30 a.m. Central Time. So if you're in it might there's no we'll see.
Early, and so I was a little off schedule today, but typically around 7:30 Central, 7:30 a.m. Central, I mean. And if you want to be anonymous, you can just let me know through a private message if there's something that you would like me to talk on. And it's basically an open conversation, as if we are two girls getting ready together in the mirror, and the deep but also lighthearted, incredible moments that you have when you are in the bathroom of like a random bar and like the girls in the bathroom there are like your best friends for that moment, but a lasting deep connection. Or just pop in and pop out, whatever you feel is what you need. So that is like my heart for the Get Ready With Me, is to have a space within on my Instagram. So it's not on Facebook, it's a specifically just Instagram
Yep.
that I do every morning.
Yep. That would
So,
break it down. So
yeah.
thanks for tuning into this episode.
Yeah.
And if you have suggestions for episode topics, then
Yeah.
let us know on our socials or in the Facebook group. We'd love to tackle issues that are relevant for you as a recovering Christian entrepreneur, navigating through and disentangling the religious and works-based aspects of your faith that maybe you came up with, and how to find authentic relationship with Jesus.
Totally.
And again,
And authentic relationship with yourself and your business as
totally.
well.
And again, that is
100%.
also, invitation is also open if you are not Christian or did not grow up in the church, but are in some other religious environment. So enough disclaimers. You know where to find us.
Comment in the video below as well if there's things that came up for you. And I think that's our cue, because my son just
That's it.
just woke up.
All right.
We
See you
love
guys
you
later.
all. Talk to you soon.